Hey guys, what's up? This is Dark Clock here, and this time I'm going to be doing another collection video, and this time is going to be on two systems, my Super Nintendo collection and my Sega Genesis collection. The reason why I'm doing two instead of just one collection is because I don't have that many games for either system. I have been recently trying to collect for these systems. Super Nintendo I've been collecting for a long time, but I used to have a lot more games than I do now, and I ended up having to sell my collection in the past like an idiot. Don't know why I did. I think the only reason I did that was because I needed the money, and now I regret it because um, Super Nintendo collecting is pretty hard to do, considering a lot of the best games are really fucking expensive. Genesis, I only recently started collecting for it. Some of these games I've had since I first got a Genesis back in like 2013, but like they weren't necessary. It wasn't necessarily a good Genesis. It was a third-party system from At Games, and it was terrible. But I got an actual Genesis now, so it's all good. Anyways, I have a total of 16 Super Nintendo games and 15 Genesis games. Full disclosure, some of the Genesis games I have are boxed. Some of them are in just carts, so keep that in mind. Anyways, let's get on with the entire collection. I'll start with the Super Nintendo stuff first. First game I have is Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. Great game, one of the best entries ever made on the Super Nintendo in my opinion. I love this game to death. It is such a fun action-adventure game. This was one of the first games I ever got for the Super Nintendo, along with Super Mario World. It's just so good. The music is memorable. The gameplay is just as great as it ever was. It still holds up well. And the game still looks really good, even for 1992. It's just great stuff. Super Mario Kart. I actually don't enjoy this one as much as the later games, but I still come back to this one every now and then for nostalgic purposes. This was the first Mario Kart game I ever played, and I was like 6, I believe. I didn't actually own the game, but I played it at friends' houses several times, and I really enjoyed it. But now playing this game, it's definitely not great, considering the later ones have done so much better over the years, but it's still fun to go back to every once in a while just to relive the glory days. Next, Super Mario World. A bona fide classic. I absolutely love this damn game. This was actually the first video game I remember playing, and I loved it so much. It still remains one of my favorite games for the system. It is just a fantastic game. Really not much I can complain about here. Yeah, I know the card is not in the best condition, but it still works at least, so yeah, but excellent game. Still love it to this day. Next game I have is Toy Story, based off the 1995 Pixar movie, which I love the movie. The game is, in my opinion, it's okay, but it's very frustrating. Like, this game is hard as hell. I got up to like stage 8, which I think is like halfway through the game, is like just before you get into the claw machine. You're just like taking the entryway. And yeah, it took me a while to get there, and even so, it was very difficult getting there. This game is very difficult. Like, a lot of the level designs are kind of borked. It just feels like they were not play tested for long. Um, the graphics are really good. Like it actually does push the limits of what the Super Nintendo could do, along with the Genesis version. But unfortunately, the game is insanely frustrating with really awkward level design, um, some pretty crappy platforming, and yeah, it's a frustrating game in terms of its design. There's just like so much crap that they could have fine tuned. I don't think it's bad, not like a lot of people would say, but it's not great either. It has its merits, but it is a mixed bag for sure. Star Trek Starfleet Academy. I love this game. This was another one of the first games I got from my system. Very fun Super Nintendo game. A little bit slow paced, but once you get used to it, it's actually really enjoyable. It's one of the better Star Trek games for sure. Pitfall: The Mayan Adventure. A lot of people didn't really seem to like this game, but I actually didn't mind it. I thought it was a pretty fun action platformer. It definitely does have its issues, like sometimes the collision detection's a bit off and the boss fights are insanely frustrating because they take forever to kill, especially the first boss who just takes so many damn hits before you can finally kill it. And sometimes when that creature attacks, it's like you don't always see it coming. It's like it just like randomly juts at you and you can't figure out its patterns. It's really frustrating. The game as a whole is kind of difficult, but it's not like it isn't the most frustrating game I've ever played. It's still a fun game. I enjoyed it quite a bit, although some of the level designs are a little bit messy, but I still enjoyed it. Next game I have is Brain Lord, developed by Enix and Quintet. One of the best games on the system, in my opinion. I love this game. This is an action RPG, and it's a really fun game. It's also very puzzle heavy too, but I don't really mind that too much because I honestly think this game is just a ton of fun. I love the music too. It's just so good, very memorable. It uses the Super Nintendo sound chip to great effect. It's just so good. I love this game. And now the video got really blurry for a second. This was actually one of the games I had when I was a kid, but then I ended up selling it, unfortunately, but I got it back now, and it feels really good to have back. Jurassic Park. You know, as far as video game movies go, this one's not half bad. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. I actually do like the gameplay for the most part. It's pretty fun. It also does have a first-person segment too, which is kind of cool. But the problem is, the first-person segment is very hard to control. It's very sloppy. It's very slow, and trying to kill the raptors is a nightmare. And I also don't like the fact that you can't even save your progress here, so you have to beat this game in one sitting, and it's a surprisingly long game to finish in one sitting. It's really weird, and like it's not like you have all the time in the world to finish this unless you're a kid, but I'm not, so yeah, I don't have the time due to my job. Anyways, but if I'd probably have to like leave the system on or at least play it on an emulator if I'm gonna try and finish this game at all. But it's a decent game, though. I actually had some fun with it. It's one of the better games that the company Ocean has ever done. I want to get the other one, Jurassic Park 2, The Chaos Continues. I've played it before. It's a pretty decent game. Killer Instinct. Love this game. One of my favorite fighting games on the system, let alone one of my favorite games on the system, period. It's just a great 2D fighter with pre-rendered graphics. Of course, nothing beats the arcade version, but the Super Nintendo version is still a ton of fun to play, in my opinion. I've had a lot of fun with this. I don't care what anyone says. I think this is a great port. It even has the music, which I love. The music is like some of my favorite soundtracks in the game. So good. Rival Surf. You can see this cover art is so bad. It's very poorly put together. Just two dudes with that ugly ass skyscraper in the background over a sunset. Really doesn't mix the colors here. But this game is all right. It's a beat 'em up, kind of like Streets of Rage, but not as good. It's not as powerful, not as fun, but it's an okay game. I don't hate it. I think it's an alright game. But it is kind of repetitive. It's kind of bland. It could be better, but it's not terrible. Secret of Mana, or Secret of Mana, as I like to call it. I love this game. It's very tough, but I love it though. I think it's a very good action RPG. I love the music. The music is some of my favorite soundtrack. The music is some of my favorites on the Super Nintendo. It's got one of my favorite video game soundtracks. It's got this nice mix of soothing, and then some more higher energy tracks. It's just great stuff, and I actually do think the character interactions are kind of fun to watch. The story is not really that engaging, but the characters themselves are what make this game. It's just a really fun game. The AI is kind of dumb sometimes, but there is a way to try and circumvent that if you can. So, yeah, I definitely recommend checking it out. It is getting pretty expensive, but I was very lucky to find a copy of this from a local seller that was selling it for $30, and that was actually a really damn good price because I remember seeing the game at this place called Second and Charles for like 60. So I'm glad to see a copy of it for $30 and in surprisingly pretty decent condition, except for that yellowing, but it doesn't bother me that much. Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. I love this game. This is one of my favorites as well. Um, I will admit this game actually gave me nightmares when I was younger, so I didn't play it as much then as I did when I was in my adult years. But I still love this game though. I kind of just went through a period of hating it just because this game gave me nightmares as a kid, especially like this one horrendous nightmare I had about it, which I won't go into detail about it at the moment because I'm a little scared to. But maybe one day I'll talk about it. But I love this game though. I actually play it more now than I ever have. I think it's just a really fun game to go through, and given the amount and given the time, I could probably speed run this if I wanted to, but I don't think I'm quite skilled enough yet. I could try though, but hey, what can you do? Such a fun game. Love the music, love the graphics, the art style, love how it plays. It's just a fantastic game. F-Zero, another one of my favorites. Actually, I would consider this my all-time favorite Super Nintendo game. It's just so much fun. It's just one of those games I always come back to. It's got so much replay value. Even though there's only 15 courses and only 4 cars, the game is just insanely timeless and so much fun to play for me. The music is amazing. The sense of speed you get is like it's something else, man. It just brings on. It just makes you feel like you're really in the race, and it's just so much fun. And it's a challenging game, but it's not like extremely frustrating. It's still hard, but it's not like F-Zero GX levels of brutal. But I love this game though. It was so much fun. I've beaten it several times. Just a great racing game. Also, the ROM hacks are pretty fun too, although maybe a bit frustrating. Mickey Mania. You know, a lot of people say the Genesis version is better. I can't say much myself because I haven't really played the Genesis version that much, but I've played the Super Nintendo version a lot, and I actually enjoyed this game. I thought it was fun, although it's pretty difficult, and it's brutal. Like, for a game that's meant for younger audiences, this is a pretty damn frustrating game, and it's very tough. Some of the enemies are just like ridiculous. Like you kill one of the skeletons in the game, and and their bones will come flying through the screen. And even after you've killed it, when the bones fly across, they're still going to hurt you, which I don't think makes any sense considering most games don't usually do that. And I thought it was just really frustrating and just kind of unnecessary for it to be like that. Also, some of the stage hazards are just complete bonkers. Like in the second part of the Mad Doctor, where you're trying to go through this where you're like on this trolley and you're trying to avoid stage hazards along with bottomless pits, and sometimes you just cannot see it coming because it goes way too fast. I never got past the third act of the Mad Doctor. My sister has, but I have not. This game is just really tough. It's still a good game. I just never been able to beat it because of its frustrating difficulty. Donkey Kong Country. I never finished this game, but I did beat DKC 2 and I loved it. The first game is still great though, and I've always had fun playing it. It definitely doesn't look as good as Donkey Kong Country 2, but I still really enjoyed it. It's a damn good platformer with great music. And last game I have is Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. I know a lot of people hate this game because it's very simplified in comparison to the other Final Fantasy games. I get that, but I never had a problem with that. I always just thought this game was fun, and even now I still enjoy it. There's definitely some issues. I mean, yeah, the simplicity can be a little overbearing, and the story is pretty dumb, but I loved it, though. I thought it was a fun game in its own right. Also, the music. I think there's definitely one thing me and the rest of the SNES community can agree on. The music in this game is just great. So much fun to listen to, especially the boss theme and the battle theme. It's just such a. It's got like a nice. It's got like a nice heavy metal kind of feel to it, which is pretty cool, especially for a Super Nintendo game released in 1992. That's great stuff. Also, I wanted to show this because it's pretty close in line with the other carts, the Super Game Boy, and currently I have Super RC Pro Am in there right now because that was what I last played on it. Yeah, this is a pretty neat little peripheral. Got a built-in Game Boy in here, which is kind of neat. Um, of course, this is not exactly the most ideal way to play these games anymore, considering the Super Nintendo, considering this is kind of dated and there are better options nowadays to play these games on the big screen, like the Game Boy Player and also the consoleizer. But this was like the cheapest option I found, and surprisingly, I got it for only like $15. So yeah, but it's really cool though. I absolutely love this thing. And now for the Genesis games, which I have 15. So let's start with the loose games first, and then we'll go into the box games. First game I have is Super Battleship. It's an alright game. Not great, but not terrible either. It's an okay representation of the board game. Terminator 2, the arcade game. Pretty fun light gun game. I actually had some fun with it. I sadly don't have the Menacer, though. Really should get it. Streets of Rage 2. Now, this game is fantastic. One of my favorite games on the Genesis, along with this game being home to one of my favorite soundtracks on the system. So damn good. Just fits well with the entire game, and I bob my head to it every time I listen to it. The gameplay is incredibly fun. It may on the surface it may seem like a repetitive beat 'em up, but when you play it, it's just so much fun, and it looks amazing too. And if you play it with friends, the experience is even better. Though friendly fire is enabled, so try not to beat each other up too much, because me and my friend accidentally did that to each other a lot when we played Streets of Rage 2 a few months ago. But it was pretty funny, though. Next game I have is Samurai Showdown. Yeah, the label is pretty faded. Doesn't look so hot. But I got this for cheap, so yeah. Anyways, so this is, in my opinion, actually a pretty decent port of the arcade game. Obviously, nothing compares to the arcade game, but the Genesis port's not bad in my opinion. I actually got some fun with it. It certainly looks good, and the music is surprisingly very close to the arcade version. Obviously, it still has that Genesis synth, but it's got a very solid rendition of the music, so that's something I can't complain about. I actually got this for really cheap too. I got it for only like $10, so that was pretty cool. But I enjoyed this game. I thought it was kind of fun on the Genesis. It's not the best port, that's for sure, but I still enjoyed it. Vector Man. This game is really fun in my opinion. It's very challenging, very tough, but I like this game. I think it's a really fun action platformer where you play as this robotic dude just going around shooting shit and trying to save your home. Just it's good stuff. I enjoyed it. Simple yet effective. Next, I have Columns, which is a classic, a bona fide classic for the system. I absolutely love this game. It's one of my more zen games, like a very relaxing puzzle game. All you need to do is just match three jewels horizontally, vertically, or diagonally, hence the name columns, and just have fun. It's a very relaxing game. Obviously, it gets more challenging later on, but it's still really fun. I love the music. It's just so relaxing. Great stuff. Very cheap too. I got it for only $6. Not bad at all. Now for the box games. Aladdin. For a game that's based on the movie, it's actually a pretty good game. I actually had some fun with it. It is an action platformer, which is very different from the Capcom game that was on the Super Nintendo. And it's just really fun. The music is very nicely replicated. The animations look phenomenal, especially considering some of it was actually made by some of Disney's animators, which is pretty freaking sweet. I don't know, like, just so damn good. I don't know how they managed to get this all in there, but they did, and it's amazing. So good. Um, it's pretty fun. I enjoyed the game. Ms. Pac-Man. It's a classic. It's a great rendition of the original arcade game. There's it looks slightly better than the arcade version, and of course nothing beats the arcade version, but this is still a very fun game, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. I actually used to have this on the Super Nintendo years ago before I sold that version. Um, and it's pretty much the same as the Genesis version. Just the music is just the audio is slightly different, but that's really the only difference here. Otherwise, it's basically the same game, but it's really good. I enjoyed this one quite a lot. Mortal Kombat, the original. You know, I enjoyed the later games more, at least in terms of the gameplay, or at least I like Mortal Kombat 3 the most out of the 2D games. I am dreadful at the 2D games for the most part, but I still enjoy them. The first Mortal Kombat has definitely aged, but it's not a bad game. It's a decent port for sure. It's a decent game on its own. But this was the only Mortal Kombat game I actually managed, the only 2D Mortal Kombat game I actually managed to finish. Unfortunately, I have not been able to finish MK2, and I got very close to finishing MK3, but I got stuck at Shao Kahn, the final boss, and I tried like 50 times to try and kill him. He was a pain in my fucking ass, let me tell you. I uttered just about every curse word in the book when I fought against him. It was so frustrating. I never had this much damn trouble. Even Jinpachi from Tekken 5, I still could be able to kill. Shao Kahn, on the other hand, no, just never could beat him in MK3, unfortunately, or at least Ultimate MK3. Don't know about the original, but Ultimate, yeah, no. But this is the only MK game that I can actually only 2D MK game I can actually finish. And probably because this one actually isn't as difficult as the others, but it's not a bad game. It's still decent, and I still play it every now and then, but definitely not as good as the later ones for sure. Desert Strike Return to the Gulf, another game I used to have for the Super Nintendo. It's pretty much the same, except the music's a little except the music is a little different. It's just accommodating for the Genesis sound driver. But it's a pretty solid game. Still need to look for Urban and Jungle Strike somewhere. I got Soviet Strike at least. I actually got that very recently. I almost got Nuclear Strike, but I decided against it for the time being until a later date. But yeah, Desert Strike, pretty fun game. Road Rash. This is a classic, great racing game, loads of fun with a solid soundtrack. Some of my favorite Genesis music too. Very good stuff. Sonic 2. Do I really need to talk? Do I really need to say much about this? I love this game. It is a certified classic. It's still just as fun as it ever was, although I really don't like Metropolis Zone. I think that one is just insanely frustrating. And really don't like how it's in 3 acts instead of 2, like the rest of the stages. It's so unnecessary. But still, though, I love this game. I think it's a lot of fun. NBA Jam Tournament Edition. I tried to get this game to work, and I don't think this copy does. I've had it for a while, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to work. It just stops at a certain point before it even gets to the game. I'll have to try it again, but can't guarantee it's going to actually work, but we'll see. I've heard it's a great game, though. Wheel of Fortune. Okay, I know some of you are probably confused, and I understand why, but hear me out. I played this game a lot when I was younger, and I always had a huge affinity for game shows. Loved them to death. I'd watch so many of them, like Blockbusters, of course, Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, Family Feud, Supermarket Sweep, Card Sharks, Match Game. Match Game was never really my favorite, but I watched it a lot because my parents loved it. So did some of my family members. Press Your Luck was great. The $1,000 Pyramid, Blockbusters. So a lot of good stuff. Oh, and Lingo. I love Lingo. So I watched a lot of game shows and I loved them to death. But Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy were some of my favorites, along with Family Feud and Press Your Luck. Those were some of the best ones in my opinion. Oh, and Lingo was another one that I loved. And I played this game a lot when I was like 10 years old, and I really enjoyed it. It felt like I was a part of the show. And while I understand why some people may not really enjoy it, I get it. It's not exactly the most fun game to play by yourself. It's actually really fun to play with friends. I actually enjoyed this one quite a bit. It isn't a great game by any means, but as far as game show games go, it's pretty good. It's a fairly accurate representation of the TV show, so can't go wrong with it. Last one I have is Star Trek The Next Generation Echoes from the Past. I used to have the Super Nintendo version a while back as well, but it was a little different from this version. There are some changes here, some great, some not so great, but what I do love about this is that it actually replicates the original Star Trek The Next Generation theme pretty closely. The music, the visuals, in 16-bit fashion, it's really cool. As for the game itself, it's not bad. It's kind of frustrating at times, but pretty decent. I like it a little bit. And I love Star Trek, so yeah, of course I had to get it. And I played the Super Nintendo game a lot, so I had to get it for that reason as well. Anyways, yeah, Star Trek. So that's my Genesis collection. And that is all I got to show for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.